All right, so we have a screenshot here to help illustrate this question. Now, when the question was first emailed in, this is basically a quick excerpt of that question, about recognizing, so in a breakout system or situation, recognizing the second breakout, right? So you get the first breakout, right? And then quite often you get a retrace back into, whatever that breakout area is. And then, and then it wants to see the second breakout there in the same direction. And so I just kind of asked for a little clarification, on what kind of breakout, this might be, because details matter, right? When you're building a system here, there's rarely any such thing as a generic answer when you're building a system, right? And all, it depends on the system, and I guess more importantly, it depends on, like how long does it take to go from one condition, which in this case, right, your first condition is the first breakout, and then how long does it typically take to go to, the second situation, or in this case, the second breakout, right? And of course, different systems are going to have different periods between the two, and so you need to basically kind of make a connection. You need to bridge that gap between the first breakout to the second breakout, and and depending on the system, you might use different nodes within BloodHound to connect these two different breakouts in this case here. So, all right. So anyway, so I asked for a little clarification, and then I got this explanation here, which is actually different than what was originally asked. So I'll try and cover kind of both of these different scenarios here, right? So, the the kind of the revamp of this original question here, right, looks for a breakout, and we're using the ON, which I'm not sure what the ON is. To me, this looks like an opening range, so it looks like an OR for opening range, but I am using an opening range indicator on my chart, and I guess, before I get going too far, actually there you can see it up on top here. It's the AMA opening range indicator. So that's from Lizard Trader or Lizard Indicators. All right, and that is a part of their free library list of indicators there, right? The opening range one. So that's what I'm using to basically, right, get this range here, so we can find a breakout there, right? So basically, we need price to close above this opening range, and so the scenario given here is the opening range high, right? So basically a breakout, right? A price break above, and then a qualifier here, or a filter. So we need price to stay above or stay outside the range for at least 25 bars, and then of course price comes back in, and we get a close inside, or at least a close below the opening range high, for at least one bar. But then all that's being looked for is if a wick, right? If a candle wick breaks outside of the opening range high. So we can see, right, we have price clearly outside of the upper range here for more than 25 bars, and then price comes back in, right? We get a close inside the range, and then we can see that one little wick there underneath my little mouse there, right? So we get a high that breaks out, right? And then, but it still stays closed inside the range. So yeah, so here we go. So this is if the high price, of any subsequent bar crosses back above, right, or crosses outside that range there. But then the closing price, right, of the next candle is back below the opening range high, right? So basically the closing price, is inside the range there. And then it wants to see a short signal. Yeah, so it sounds like, right, this is basically trying to identify a failed secondary breakout, of some kind of range there. So, all right, so that's what we're going to build right now. And I already have an example found on my chart. Squeeze this up. All right, so here's our opening range. And we do have, what looks like at least 25 bars. So, I might modify this number here, just to kind of fit whatever scenario here I have here. So, and, oh, thanks, Bob. All right. Bob's always good with stuff. Yeah, overnight. Okay. So, all right. So, some kind of, oh, I see. Yeah, an overnight range. All right. Yeah, I don't think I have an overnight range indicator. So, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. All right. So, yeah, ON overnight. So, but we're going to be working with an opening range indicator here. So, oh, let's see here. All right. So, back on track. So we have a breakout here. This looks like this is good for at least 25 bars. If it's not, again, I'll adjust that number to kind of, make the system fit with the example, that I have to work with. And this is, let me put the date range back on the chart here. So, and there we go. All right, so you can see this is on the 18th, 2 days ago, right? So that's kind of how far I had to go back, to get a little breakout. And then, yeah, so we got to break out to the other side and then pull back and break below again. So, all right. So this is our working example there. All right, so with that, let me get BloodHound open and we'll start building. So, yeah, as you guys can see here, I am actually still on an older version of BloodHound. So, if you're not on 52 yet, definitely I would recommend switching over to 52. So, yeah, I'll get this switched over here after the workshop there. So, all right, so we have BloodHound open. First thing we're going to do is put a file name in here. So that way all of our work gets saved to a file. So I'll hit the Save As button there. And let's see, I'll use a prior name here. All right, and yeah, these workshops have been gone for a whole month. Took a break for a month there. And let's see, all right, let's save that. First thing we're going to do here is we're going to identify, right, the breakout for at least 25 candles there. So the easiest way to do that would be to use a comparison solver, right? And we're just going to compare the close of each bar to, right, the range is low, and to the range is high. Right? So we're going to use a comparison solver to do that. So let's go to solvers, grab a comparison, all right, connect that into the result node, and let's see, input A, that's going to be the bar prices here. So we want the closing price. So there we go, the close is the default price, so we're good there. And next, input B, right, that's going to be this opening range indicator. All right, so what I'm using is the lizard indicator's opening range. There it is. All right, opening range. And I have my indicator set to Eastern Standard Time, all right, for the time zone. And we're going to go to 9:30. So it's a 1 hour opening range there. And all right, so the main settings there have been adjusted to match what's on my chart. And next, we need to go figure out what plots do we want. Okay, so in our system rules here, when price crosses the overnight high, or in our case the opening range high, ultimately we're going to develop a short signal, right? A short signal. So we're going to use the high for short signals, and vice versa. We're going to use the low, right? The opening range low to generate long signals here. So just as I have marked up on my chart here, right, we're using the low range to generate a long signal there. Okay, and now let's go into the output here, and I'm going to shrink this up a little bit. Little tip here: if you notice, your cursor gets stuck with the hand, right? That's basically the pan command there. Yeah, it's because I was reaching for the center view, but I accidentally hit the pan. So all you gotta do is click on pan again, and there you go. Now you got your cursor back. Let's see here. All right, so we can see that when price is below the lower range, we're getting shorts there. All right, so we need to go in to the output here and reverse our conditions. All right, so we just need to simply reverse our conditions. So for a long output, instead of the close being greater than the lower range, we want the close to be less than. And for shorts, right, if the close is greater than the upper range. So we need to switch this to greater than. We can hit apply, and then that way we can see the results, without having to close this window. And there we have it. So, okay. Now, so basically we have this part, right? If price closes above, right, or below, above the opening range high, overnight high, or below the opening range low. So now we need for at least 25 bars. So there's a couple ways we can do this. Let's see. We need a function node, so we could use either the look back or the signal counter. So I'm going to go with the signal counter. For this situation, it's kind of 6 or half dozen the same. But the signal counter gives us a little more flexibility here, right? So what we want to do, and I'll explain that flexibility in a moment here. So we want to count up to so we need at least 25 bars. So we're counting up to 25. And let's connect that in. Yeah. So we can see on the chart there, right, BloodHound starts marking once we get to that 25th bar that's outside the range. So now with the signal counter, you can add a little flexibility, so maybe you don't need 25 bars in a row, right, in a sequence. Maybe you can say, all right, tell you what, 25 out of the last 30 bars is good enough for my system, right? So you can add in that little flexibility there of saying, I need X number of bars out of X number of bars. So it doesn't have to be, 25 bars exactly in a row. You can build in a little flexibility by saying, okay, out of the last 30 bars, I only need 25. So, but, right. But I'm going to keep this system conservative here, according to the rules here that were given me. So, all right. So there's that. There's our little breakout, right, to the downside. And of course, this upper breakout, didn't do anything. So there's no signal there. All right, so we have our breakout, and it's always good to rename your solvers here so that you know what the node is set to. All right, so we're counting to 25. There. So we have our 25 bars, outside of, the range. Now we need to extend this signal forward in time until we get to the next breakout there. And let's see here. In this case, there's two ways we can do this. So when you need to take a signal and extend it forward in time, there's two ways you can do that. And there we go, function nodes. So we could use a signal extender, or we could use a toggle node. And, again, I don't think this really matters here, but I'm going to go with the signal extender simply because, what I think is what's not written here, but what's most common is that, these rules are probably only valid until the end of the RTH, right? And until the regular trading hours comes to an end, right? So that means there's only, X number of bars really that this breakout would be good for. So that's why I'm going to use this signal extender here. Let's connect that in. Oh, all right. So let's see. Let me do some quick math here. So we have a 1 hour opening range, so that's 60 bars. And then we need at least another 25 bars, right? So that's 85 bars. So 85 bars is the soonest that we could actually get this 25 candle kind of breakout. So that means, like roughly how many bars do we have left here? And again, I'm on a 1 minute chart, right? So I can, so we have only a fixed number of bars remaining. If this was a tick chart or a volume chart, right, or something like that, or a range chart, right, then obviously the number of bars is, got to be far different here. Instead of kind of going through all the math here, let's see here. I think 500 should be good enough. And yes. And I'm getting a short output here. Oh, interesting. All right. Yeah, so our comparison solver is giving us a short output here. And yeah. Yeah, so just a moment here. I think if I make an adjustment to this indicator, so I'm trying to see if I can set up this indicator here so that I can visually see where the opening range plot is so that I know what's generating this short output right outside. And oh, there we go. Yeah, so if I scroll back to the prior day, right, yeah, I can see that price is above the upper range, giving us this short output. Yeah, I just wish I could extend this range forward. Right. All right. Okay, so what I'm gonna do to kind of fix, so I need to fix this short output here, from the overnight session there, right? Because this overnight session, as we can see from the signal extender, right, we're getting this short, and so we're getting the short being extended all the way into the next day, and so we need to clean that up. So what I'm going to do, put that there. So what I'm going to do, and actually, all right, so I should have given this comparison solver a name here first, right? So we're comparing the close to the opening range low, and that generates a long output, and the opening range high generates a short output. So I'm going to basically kind of clean up this comparison solver here by using a time session solver. And we'll just call this RTH. There, RTH session. And let's connect that to the result node there. All right. And so setting up this time session solver, let's go into the session here options. And from the drop down menu, let's select the US RTH as our session. Click OK. All right, and so there we go. We only have an output during RTH, and so this overnight, right, there's no output. So when I take a AND node, right, so that's just the comparison solver going through the AND node, and so we have the short still during the overnight, but as soon as I connect in the time session solver, there we go, it's gone, right? So, and there, yeah, so we can see it ends at 1400 hours, which is when the market closes on my time zone. So there. So now we kind of cleaned out this overnight output from the overnight. So now I need to disconnect. Right, disconnect the comparison solver to the signal counter and then connect the AND node into the signal counter. There. All right, so now if we look at the signal extender, there we go. All right. Yeah, so it looks like 500 bars is probably a little excessive. We'll knock that down to 400 bars. Yeah, I'll keep it there. So, all right, so, and since I have this time session solver, right, that kind of removes or strips away any kind of output from the overnight session, I'm going to use this again here. Move this down. I'm going to grab another AND node. Connect that in. All right, and all right, so we still have this little bit of a output here. Actually, let's see. Yeah, to about there. So we want to remove that output after the market closes. And so I can take my time solver and I can connect it into this next AND node down here. And there. So now I've been able to clean up the signal extender, right? Because sometimes it's going to extend outside when the market's closed there. All right, so let's give this AND node a name here. So, all right, so we got a lot of acronyms going on here, right? So we have the regular trading hours, first, breakout, right? So actually, there. All right, so that's what this AND node is giving us, is the first breakout, but also right during the RTH. So, all right, so that was all basically kind of like the first requirement here, right? The first system rule, all that just to get there. So, yeah, because we had to do a little bit of cleanup work here, right? So kind of our comparison solver, identifying the breakout, we discovered, yeah, we needed to clean it up, right? And make sure that we're only getting, signals during RTH, right? And then we also, took our signal extender, so after we get that 25 bar breakout, then we kind of clean that up too, to make sure that our signals stay within the regular trading hours. All right, so next we're looking for price to basically close back inside the range here, right? Essentially, that's what it's saying. Right, so we're looking for, looks like it's going to be that bar right there. So we're going to need another comparison solver. Actually, I'm going to modify this. All right, so this is the close breaking out of the opening range. And so I'm going to make a copy of this node because it already has the opening range indicator already set up inside of it there. And so by making a copy of this, I'm also copying the settings of the indicator exactly, right? So if you have so just kind of like a little tip here, right? So if you have an indicator that's kind of complicated to set up. This opening range is not complicated to set up, but let's say you do have one that's complicated, right? And it has lots of different settings. Then obviously when you're building a system, it's important that the settings for all, for your main indicator, are all consistent throughout all of your solvers, right? So it is important there, right? Because making one change in an indicator settings could throw off your whole system, right? So by copying that comparison solver here, let me paste it down here, I'm ensured that this opening range indicator settings are exactly the same as what I've used previously. All right, so now we're checking to see if the close goes inside the opening range. All right, so again, with this new comparison solver, right, the price we're checking is the closing price again, and we want the opening range the same, but what we're going to change is the output. So the comparison rules here need to be modified because we're not looking for the close to be below the lower range. We're now looking for the close to be above that. So we're going to reverse these comparators again, or I should say these operators. We're going to reverse those operators. And there we have it, right? So when the close is above the upper range, then we're getting a long output here. And I'm kind of thinking to myself, I wonder if I kind of need to clean this up as well. Yeah, I don't think so. Yeah, we might have to kind of come back to this solver and clean it up, but I don't think we'll need to do that. So let's just go forward without cleaning it up and connect those two together. All right, so I'm just kind of analyzing what we have here. All right, so far everything looks good. So we have our first breakout for 25 bars, price crosses back in, and we have this long output here, until price breaks out again. Yeah, so I think so far so good. So now we can move on to the next one here, right? So now we're looking for either the high or the low of the wick, right, to cross the range again. So that's where we actually get to the signal part now. Right, so we're just looking for, right, in this case, right, the example that I have to work with is the reverse of all of this, right? So I'm actually looking for the low price to cross back below, right, the opening range low, right? The low price to cross the opening range low. So I'm having to reverse, all of this here. So let's see. I am going to copy this solver again. Yeah, I'm going to copy this solver again. Let's put it down here, paste that. Let's connect that in. But this time, instead of it being the closing price, we're actually monitoring, right, the high or the low, or the wicks. So All right, so input A needs to be switched over to the low and the high price, right? So when the low goes below the low range, or the opening range low, that's going to generate a long output. So let's switch this to the low, and then for a short, it's going to be the opposite price, so the high. And there we have it, right? So there is our little wick breakout there, just before the signal. Right? So that's it. And let's see here. Now, if I connect this into the AND node, actually, yeah, all right. I was thinking I was going to need a look back node here, but actually that works. So that's exactly what we're looking for. Right. So let's analyze this here for a sec. Okay, yeah, so I am going to need a look back node here, and I'll explain this. Yeah, actually, I think technically, this should be our first signal. So actually, this bar here was the first bar that closed inside the range, right? And then we had a wick afterwards. Yeah, I'm looking at the rules here. So there are some qualifiers here. Yeah, so here's the qualifier of any subsequent candle. All right, so the candle here that moves back in, right, that closes back inside the range, right, takes care of this rule. But then we need, right, the wick breaking outside the range of any subsequent candle. Yeah. All right. So what I'm going to do is take a look back node, right? And you notice, right, we have a long output on this bar here. And after I run this through the look back node, right, you notice how the output shifts forward one bar, right? So I took the output from this bar closing inside the range and then shifted it forward onto the next bar, because this bar, the close is on the range. It's no longer inside the range. So when this wick is outside, the close is inside. And that's why we actually have, here, let's go back here. Right, so I removed our look back again, right? So this is the subsequent candle here, but there's no long output, right? So even though the wick did close outside, we don't actually have a signal here, right? And that's what we need. We need a long output for this to actually generate a signal, for this rule here. And so by taking the long output here and shifting it forward onto onto any subsequent bar, right? Taking care of that. So there. And what's shifting the output forward onto the next bar is NinjaTrader's displacement, right? So we're taking advantage of this displacement function from NinjaTrader, right? Which shifts your indicator output forward, X number of bars. And so I'm just going to rename this to 1 dis, short for displacement, so that way I know that this look back node is all it's performing is a 1 bar displacement. So now I can take another AND node like so, and then connect this in. All right, so this has been taken care of. So there, right? So let's kind of back up here, right? So this is this candle here, right? So we have the bar closing back inside the range, and then this is the wick right there, right? That wick breaking outside the range again. You know, of course, this one did too, but we do have a qualifier here, you know, so how you write down your rules is right, details, details, details. Very critical, right? This could have changed the system completely. Actually, it would have changed the system completely, but it says of any subsequent candle, right? So it can't be the same candle as what does this condition. So that is why I had to use this look back node, because this back here is, let's see, so this AND node is our close going back inside the opening range. All right, so that's this rule here. And this AND node is essentially what we could say is the wick breakout. All right, so there you go. This is our wick breakout. And then we have to look for a close back inside the range again. So we're looking for this condition one more time. And once again, of any subsequent candle. So we have that qualifier again. So that means I need to take, take a copy of this. Let's paste it afterwards. There, right? So, right. So there's our little wick breaking back out. And then the next, or I should say any kind of candle here needs to close back in, right? And so we don't know, oops, let me get rid of this. There we go. And so we don't know how long price might just consolidate on this opening range line. All right, so this might take a while. You know, price might kind of fall back outside the range, kind of dance around for a little bit, you know, before or if it does eventually close back inside the range. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take another signal extender. And make sure you connect it to the right input there. Right? I connected it to the reset by accident. So let's make sure we get this connected to the input node there. Or input connector, I should say. There. Now, at this point, you know, typically at this point, right, once you get to the wick kind of breaking outside the range again, at that point, usually I think most traders would say that this has a limited lifespan at this point. So even though it's not written down, you know, and this is probably something that you guys don't think about consciously, you know, you just kind of know as a trader intuitively, okay, I got my last condition, and now I'm waiting for price to close back in. but intuitively know, okay, well, this really only has kind of a limited lifespan, or maybe not, right? So I'm going to kind of assume that this has a limited kind of lifespan once we get to this point. That price eventually needs to close back inside, and if it doesn't, or if it takes too long, then we'll pass on the signal, but so I'm using this signal extender here, and let's say, I guess just for good measure, we'll give this a 10 bar lifespan here. Now, if this doesn't, doesn't have some kind of limited lifespan there, and really, you're fine waiting until the market, all the way until the market eventually closes, then you can just take this signal extender and just increase the number of bars, right? Increase the number of bars until the end of the trading day. So you can extend that out. Just like if we go back here, so remember our signal extender that we used a long time ago, right? I had it set up to 400 bars, but just remember that, when I extended it way out there, we did clean up the signal extender by using the time session solver, right? So remember, we ran the signal extender here, and I'll just put the number in there just to be consistent there. Right. And then we ran that into an AND node with this time session solver, right? So that way, let's connect that in, right? That way, our 25 bar breakout, it was only good until the market closed. And so, this last requirement, if you want this to be good all the way to the end of the market, then we could just do the same thing as what we did back here, right? We could take the time session solver, we could put an AND node here, and run the time session solver into the AND node, right? With it, and that would make, this last condition, good until the end of the market there. So again, details on how exactly, you want to constrain the system or give it as much liberal flexibility as possible. So, but I'm going to, kind of go with what I hear a lot from people, asking their system questions here, which usually this last condition usually has a limited kind of lifespan here. So with that, so we have, so we still haven't completed this yet, right? So we've taken this condition and then we've extended it forward for 10 bars until this last final condition happens. And let's zoom back in here. Right, so there we go. So the green arrow there is what we're looking for. So once again, we're looking for the close inside the range. And we have that back here. So we have that node back here. And instead of copying this, I'm not going to make a copy because I don't need a copy. I already have this node. And I don't need to modify this node. So all the other times when I've made a copy is because I had to make a minor adjustment, like this node here, right? We're using the low and the high price, right? This node is using the close, right? But the outputs are reversed. And so same with the very first comparison node here, right? We're using the closing prices, but the outputs are reversed, they're the opposite of what we used down here. But we're going to use this exact condition again here. So I don't want to make a copy of it because I don't need a duplicate. I'm just going to reuse this node again, but not as a copy. And so what I can do, right, this node, there we go, we can read it, right, the close inside the opening range. It's this node right here on our list. And I could just drag this in like that. And now I have this same node. These are both the same node. It's this one node right here on the list. But we can visually see it twice. So this isn't two nodes. You know, visually on the workboard it's two nodes, but it's only one functioning or one calculating node within the system. So they're both this node here. And so I can take, oops, sorry, there we go. So I can take one of these, move it down here where I need it, and then I can grab an AND node. And yep, there we have it. All right, so this node and this node are the exact same node, but we're just seeing it visually represented twice on the workboard here. But it's as far as what's being calculated, it's just this single node here. Right. So, right, and actually you can put the same node on the board as many times as you want, right? And the reason why you can do this is it helps, you know, it helps kind of clean up your leaders, right? I mean, I could do this. I could have done that, right? And that's doing the same thing. I'm using this one node inside this AND node and with this AND node, you know. But if you want to kind of keep your leaders cleaned up like this, so it doesn't look like spaghetti, you know, then, you know, remember that you can just drag the node that you need again. You can just drag it on here, and that they're both the same here. All right. But also, if you're tweaking your system, you know, let's say you want to tweak this part of the system. If I make a change to this node, it also changes the node back here. Right? So just remember that, you know, if I change one of these, it's changing the core node right here. So let's see. So we're at our final step, and we have a bunch of outputs here. So I will clean that up. Let's see here. There's two ways I could clean this up. I could just put a signal blocker at the end, and that would be the easiest thing to do, right? I could just, you know, put a signal blocker there. Oop. And again, I connected it to the reset by accident, so make sure you're connecting them correctly. There. So with the signal blocker, right, I could block for 9 nodes, right? I only need to block for 9 nodes because the signal extender is only good for 10 nodes, right? So it's just simple math there. And let's see here. I don't need any of these resets. There. All right. And so now we have a nice clean, and All right. Yeah, we're getting that last signal at the end. Hold on. Do I need 10? No. Oh, I do. Okay. All right. Sorry. I do actually need to block for 10. There we go. So now we got that erroneous signal there at the end cleaned up. Let's see here. Oh, so signal blocker, that's the quick and easy way to do it. I would say technically we should turn off the signal extender here. So I'm actually going to get rid of the signal blocker. And what we can do is take the signal extender and turn it off, or in other words, reset it, right? That's what the reset connection is for. Is resetting a node is the same as turning it off. And the way I can do that is I need a function node. So, so when do I need to turn the signal extender off? Well, I need to turn it off after we get, right? So once we get a bar closing inside the range, afterwards, right? So the next bar afterwards, that's when we need to turn that signal extender off, right? We don't want to turn it off on the signal bar. We want to turn it off after we get the trade signal. Right? So this look back node, again, I'm going to use the displacement function. Yep. Use the displacement function. And so I can take this comparison solver, which is identifying when the close is inside the range, right? I'm getting a long output when the close is inside that range, right? So I can feed that into a look back and then feed that into the reset here. So let's take a look. Let's take a look at our signal extender. And, oh, it was already, yeah, there we go. Shoot, I was hoping that you guys could kind of visually see what was going on here. But, yeah. So if I turn off the reset signal here, right, there's our signal extender, right, extending out for 10 bars. And with this output of the closing inside the range, right? So we're taking this long output here, right? We're actually, we're taking all of these long outputs here. So all of these long outputs, they're being delayed, right there, right? So we can see my little square here, right? They're being shifted forward one bar, so there's no long output right here on this bar anymore, right? It's shifted forward onto the next bar, right? This bar, which is after our signal bar, and so that is what turns off the signal extender. All right, so I need to go back into the signal extender here. And so for the resets, I'm using the reset signal. And there we go. So if I connect that in, there. All right, so there's the entire system there. right? And so with this particular system, right, we're looking for a condition, and then we have to wait some time, X number of bars for the next condition, and then we got to wait again X number of bars for the next condition, and then wait again X number of bars for the next condition, right? So this is a chaining together of different conditions, one after another, after another, after another. And when you do that, when you have a system that operates like that, you'll notice that, on the workboard here, that you will have a sequence of nodes that just keep chaining one after another, after another, after another, after another, right? So you'll notice a common look to these systems where you got, condition 1 happens, then condition 2 happens a little bit later, condition 3 happens even later than that, right? And condition 4 even after that, all right? So on and so forth. And you'll notice that your systems begin to just kind of get linked together in this long sequence like that, and if you zoom in, you'll also notice that, well, you'll probably have some signal extenders in there, or maybe a toggle node instead of a signal extender, right? And then you'll have some AND nodes where you're checking for some conditions, right? You could be using a comparison solver, threshold solver, inflection solver, whatever solver it is, that's finding your next condition, right? And then you might use some look back nodes to displace, the previous condition forward onto the next bar for the next one, so on and so forth. And you might have another signal extender in there somewhere, something like that, right? So there is a common kind of looking theme here, to systems that take one condition and extend it forward for the next one, and then extend that forward for the next one. So, all right. Let me kind of see where we're at. All right, so we're past the 1 hour mark here. Almost 1 hour and 20 minutes. All right, that went a little bit longer than I kind of expected, but you never know. All right, so I'm going to try and, I said I would try and touch on this quickly afterwards, right? Because the original question, the example given with the original question is quite a bit different here, right? So you have a breakout, and so you get the first breakout, and that's not when you want it, when the signal is wanted. The signal is wanted on the second breakout, right? So the breakout again, and that would be, that's quite a bit different than analyzing price coming back in and then a wick coming back out. Let's see here. Yeah, let's see. That day does not have a double breakout, so let's see if we have one here. No, we don't. This was just the market taking off. Let's see what we have today. Now, today's the market's kind of taking some profits today. All right. So here we go. Let's see. What are we on? The 12th. All right. So back on the 12th, right? We have a breakout late in the day. And then, no, this is all after hours. Okay. No. Here we go. The 11th. All right. Here's a good kind of classic situation of a double breakout. So, right, first breakout. And then, of course, second breakout. All right. There. All right, so there's our first breakout. That was good for at least 25 candles here. And so, if we wanted to modify all this to look for another breakout, let's see what we can do here. All right, so at here, right, the close goes inside the opening range. So from this point, let's see here. All right, so from this point, I'm going to connect it into a signal extender here. All right, I'm going to extend for 400 bars, just for good measure. And I'm just going to try and whip through this pretty quickly. So, let's see here. And again, I'm going to grab this RTH solver there, right? Because I have the signal extender of the first breakout, extending out there for 400 bars. So I want to limit that to the RTH. There we go. Right? First breakout, and then it ends at the end of the day. Actually, I'm sorry. Hold on. This is actually, the first breakout and then a close inside. Yeah. So, stretch this out a little bit so we can see this better. Right, there we go. So this is a close back inside. And if we wanted to, you could say, all right, well, I want the market to close back inside the opening range for X number of bars, So if that's what you wanted, to say, okay, we need to close inside for X number of bars, right? So we could take this signal counter here, make a copy of it, paste it at the end, right? And I don't know, maybe 25 bars is a bit excessive. So let's just say 10 bars. So knock it all down to 10 bars, like so. And let's take a look at that. And yeah, there we go. All right. So we have our breakout, and then we have price closing back inside for, so many bars. And then we look for the breakout again. So I'm going to need another AND node, and I need this right close breakout of the opening range. So I need this solver again. So that's this guy on the list. So I can drag it onto the board. And I can drag it up here. And you see how the output changes. So now our short, right, is now shows up right here on the second breakout. So there we have it. So, and yeah, as you might notice, right, yeah, we have a ton of short signals, you know, all the way until the end of the day. And why is that? Well, that's because of the signal extender, right? The signal extender goes all the way to the end of the day. So if we wanted to, right, we could use, remember this same trick here with this signal extender, we turned it off using, once the close breaks out outside, we then fed that using a 1 bar delay. We fed that into the reset, and that turned off the signal extender. So we can do the same thing again. So let's make a copy of this node. And paste it here. It goes in there. And then this goes way back here into that reset, right? Because remember, this signal extender is our 400 bar signal extender. So, so let's feed it into that. And oh, look, did it fix it? Yeah, it did. There you go. It cleaned it up instantly. And there is our signal. So, and again, you know, this is a short signal. You know, it's probably, you know, for this type of example here or system, you know, this is probably the opposite of what we want here. So I'm going to take the shortcut here, and I'm going to take this AND node, and I'm just going to swap the outputs. And I'm going to take the cheating way here and swap it. You know, and I'm saying this is the cheating way because, you know, because remember, this original system here was built kind of opposite of this double breakout, right? This system here was built in the opposite way. So all the nodes were set up backwards, right? So this comparison solver was set up backwards from normal. You know, this comparison solver, all these comparison solvers here on the list were set up kind of backwards, right? Because we're generating a short signal when the closing price went back inside. So yeah, so actually on this day we get, nice, we get examples of both here, right? So we get the breakout, and then the market comes back inside, right? We get our wick breaking, and we get these short signals here, right? We get all these short signals. So so again, you know, because the beginning part of the system was kind of built in a opposite manner, you know, the shortcut was really just to take this AND node and swap the output so I get a long here instead of a short. So Yeah, because this comparison node is backwards, right? If I take a look at it, right, it's giving us a short when the market breaks out to the upside. So yes, so again, all these nodes were backwards here. So I just kind of took the shortcut. So, all these nodes really should be reversed, for building a double breakout like that, but it works, it functions. All right, I'm just gonna stick that off to the side. All right, we are finally done here. Let's see. All right, so I guess we can call this a breakout failure kind of system here.